Part 33. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi San. Chapter 334. 200 meters. Only the last 200 meters left. The porcupine player stopped retreating. He turned off the air cushion and nailed the aircraft body to the ground with anchors. Alex shouted, "It seems like he's planning to give it his all." There are still 100 meters left. All the openable covers on the Hercules FA type have been opened. The two cluster laser cannons mounted on the arms have also been charged. Dangerous laser cannons are flashing deep in the muzzles. White light. Fire all bombs, the pilot sitting in the cockpit roared, pressing the red buttons on the inside of the operating levers on both sides with both hands at the same time. In just half a second, all the weapons on Hercules fired at the same time. The dense barrage and the dazzling light beams as thick as the mouth of a bowl immediately enveloped Valkyrie, who rushed forward, and he himself, driven by the huge recoil, slid back several meters. The severely deformed anchor even plowed several deep ravines on the ground. Boom! The smoke and fire generated by the explosion instantly enveloped the two machines, but the next second, a black, white and orange machine silhouette broke through the smoke and circled behind the opponent. "Frontal bombardment is useless against Valkyrie," Layton said quite proudly. "The Nov 6 energy shield and the retractable physical shield inside the armor are enough to damage the body I modified with just that little firepower, completely impossible." As he spoke, Valkyrie had already moved behind Hercules, and the high-power blower installed in the venue to simulate strong winds in the wilderness had also blown away the rising smoke and dust, allowing the two machines to appear again inside the audience's field of vision. Da-da-da-da, boom boom boom. Under close fire from the 12.7 mm caliber machine gun on Valkyrie's wrist, the reactive armor on Hercules continued to explode. From K-Ian's perspective, it seemed as if a string of several strings were hung on the mech's body, like hundreds of firecrackers. Anti-bar comment: generally speaking, 12.7 mm caliber machine guns cannot trigger reactive armor. However, because it is a competition, the power of all weapons has been weakened, and the trigger threshold of reactive armor has also dropped accordingly. In addition, it is almost shooting intensively at zero range, that's why it was detonated. Hercules' pilot didn't react until then and opened the energy shield, but Valkyrie had already drawn out his fighting dagger, pointed it at Hercules' back, and stabbed it in hard. The energy shield can neutralize the attack of beam or particle weapons, and can also weaken the damage of artillery shells and missiles by melting, vaporizing or detonating in advance, but when facing a weapon with a mass of more than 150, when it comes to a kilogram solid sword, Hercules' shield will have little effect. Unless it is a battleship-level energy shield, it can directly vaporize Valkyrie's fighting dagger before piercing the shield. Seeing this scene, Chi Hanfan jumped up from his seat instantly and shouted to the other Valentina on the communicator, "Didn't I tell you not to attack the cockpit? Do you want to be eliminated in the first game?" "I didn't kill him. I adjusted the angle of the thrust to avoid the cockpit," Valentina replied in the communication channel. "Then have you considered the issue of energy shield? Even if you don't stab him to death, the temperature on the blade is enough to heat the cockpit into an oven. Even if the cockpit of the new frame is well insulated, you can't play like this. Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of what happens. But as long as he is still breathing, I am not violating the rules, am I?" Valentina's tone was very calm, as if she just picked up a piece of waste paper from the ground and threw it into the trash can. "It's not like stabbing a heavy mecha through with a dagger. I have to make sure that the opponent completely loses the ability to fight back." Hercules' movement stopped, and the energy shield disappeared. Valkyrie pulled out the dagger that was burned red by the energy shield, kicked Hercules to the ground, and at the same time, announced the whistle of victory immediately sounded in the arena, and the firefighting team and medical emergency team quickly rushed in with equipment. Hercules' pilot Porcupine did not die, although he almost turned into a suckling pig. Fortunately, Valentina drew out the dagger in time, and the cooling system inside the aircraft quickly cooled the cockpit. Only then did he come back with his life. With ARC's current medical standards, within a few months, he would be able to be active and ready to compete in the next mecha competition, provided that the club did not terminate his contract. A very exciting execution. Although this is only the first game of this competition, I feel that the confrontation of just 10 seconds can already reserve a seat among the top 10 shots of this competition. Personally speaking, I really like Valentina's fighting style, crisp, neat, kill with one hit. I'm already looking forward to the next battle, Alex said loudly into the microphone. In the cockpit of Valkyrie, Valentina leaned her head on the seat, closed her eyes and fell asleep, but her hands never let go of the joysticks on both sides. The mechanical prosthetic limbs were rhythmically moving slightly. The lubricated joints continued to make a slight and smooth friction sound. In fact, the moment she inserted the dagger into Hercules' body, she had murderous intentions. She was once a soldier, a war machine specially built for killing, and she got on the mecha. It should be to take away the enemy's life, not to participate in this ridiculous competition. But she is no longer a soldier. Her military status and Strangler Squadron designation have been erased, just like she erased the emblem on her shoulder. The only thing that drives her to live is what is deep in her heart. Of hatred. Although she had taken a double dose of painkillers before the competition, the old injuries on her body were still aching. She was very aware of her physical condition and could not last long with medicines alone. How long could she last? Lifespan? 1 year? Maybe, half a year? But before she died, she had to find that person. If the military court couldn't make a trial, then she would be the one to judge that person's sins. Valentina opened her eyes. The intermission was just over, and the second player from the Angres club entered the arena driving his mecha. The Heracles in this first game is different. The opponent in the second game is actually a melee specialized machine. In addition to the two 25mm caliber Gatling cannons on its shoulders, his most important the weapon is an oversized chain sword. The saw teeth made entirely of nano alloy reflect dangerous black reflections, let alone a mecha. Even if it is the shell of a battleship, this chainsword it is estimated that it can also be cut open. P.S. Thanks to AskJoker for the 1,500 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 335. I know this guy. This is his 6th time participating in the mecha competition. Apart from those ace pilots, he is already quite famous. Layton said in the audience. This guy is a Warhammer fan, nicknamed himself Asteroots, and his favorite weapon is the chain sword. He was originally a normal person, but later he underwent several reconstructive surgeries for this fanatical hobby, but his luck was not very good. The last operation failed, and I almost lost my life, and my strength fell to the level of a first-level reformer. That's really a little expert at committing suicide, Kaylan commented. The whistle has been blown. This guy named Asteroots changed his previous teammates' avoidance style and started charging with his chainsword in tow. In order not to slow down his own speed, he even connected the weapon mounted on his shoulder armor. None of the Gatling cannons were used. The distance between the two sides was shortening rapidly, but just when they were about to come into contact, Valkyrie suddenly fired several smoke bombs, and a large sheet of white smoke instantly filled half of the arena. Contestant Valentina actually used smoke bombs at this time. Alex said with a hint of doubt in his tone. However, in this arena, conventional smoke bombs can have a very limited effect, just like we can still see that their figures are the same on the screen. The mechas of the contestants are also equipped with thermal imaging devices. No matter how thick the smoke screen is. Alex's words stopped abruptly, and Valkyrie in the smoke made an action that many people couldn't understand. She pulled out the fighting dagger from her waist and heated her energy shield. After a moment, he threw it towards the open space in front of him on the right. This kind of operation left most of the audience confused. Could an ace pilot still make such a low-level mistake? Even if the opponent's figure cannot be clearly seen in the smoke screen, one can always see such a large high-temperature color block on the thermal imaging instrument, right? Even if you want to use the dagger as a throwing weapon, you should throw it at the opponent. But let's not talk about whether Valentina made a mistake. The next moment she threw the dagger, her opponent Asterutes made a fatal mistake. With extreme cooperation, he completely ignored Valkyrie, who had moved to his right and was close at hand. Instead, he picked up the chainsword in his hand and swung it towards the fighting dagger in front of him that had not yet landed. I understand. This is not a mistake, this is Valentina's tactic. Alex suddenly realized. The reason why player Asterutes made such an outrageous mistake is because he has fallen into Valentina's trap. In the trap designed by player Leonina, we can see that in the image displayed by the thermal imaging instrument, the red-hot fighting dagger is far more eye-catching than the player's body. Just now, player Astartes' attention must have been attracted by this eye-catching short sword for a moment. In such a tense match, this is completely unavoidable. But Alex paused and continued to explain. When he realized that this was just a bait, the Mecha's intelligent assistance system had already made the wrong response plan for him. AI error. Thinking that the pilot wanted to attack that target, he activated the preset attack action stored in the Mecha. In Valkyrie's eyes, the Mecha with its door wide open due to the attack action was no different from a living target. Another fighting dagger easily penetrated the opponent's body, but this loyal Warhammer fanatic, he had better luck than his teammates. Luckily he didn't even have time to activate the energy shield, so he escaped the fate of being roasted half to death. At this time, the audience had recovered from their confusion, and even Kaylan and others on the suspended platform could hear the fierce applause clearly. This is probably the reason why the ace pilot always insists on full manual operation. How can he still play? Layton murmured to himself. Although this tactic will not work when facing an ace pilot, in terms of viewing pleasure, it is no less than a fight between two ace pilots. Coupled with Alex's explanation, in just a few dozen minutes, Valentina gained a large number of fans among the spectators. Moreover, compared to those tall and thick male pilots, Valentina's appearance and figure have become her fan-attracting weapon. Although there is no camera inside the Mecha, it is still easy to take photos of the contestants and some promotional videos. You can search for iceberg beauties like this who are full of neutral beauty. The audience is still very wide, especially when paired with a violent machine like a Mecha. The contrast becomes even more obvious. Kaylan glanced at the barrage of the online live broadcast, and there were many comments such as, "Miss Valentina, I want to marry you, Oslo, I'm so excited." These two games, were they too high profile? On the contrary, Chi Hanfan's face showed a worried look. The competition has just begun, and Valentina is expected to become a participant from each team. He is the team's key research target. I'm afraid he will be targeted in the following games. It's a good thing to perform well. Kaylan patted Chi Hanfan on the shoulder. Don't worry too much. Anyway, as an ace pilot, he will be targeted sooner or later, especially in the later eliminations, when he pretends to be a pig and eats the tiger. It won't work at all. Also, I suggest you take a look at your mailbox, it's probably full. Email. Chi Hanfan was stunned. Valentina is very popular. There must be a lot of businesses who want to negotiate cooperation and sponsorship. I think that even if she cannot win the championship, she will not be short of subsequent medical expenses. That's true, but I guess she won't accept things like filming advertisements. At most, she can only print a few sponsors' emblems on the Mecha. Chi Hanfan's side. I'm too now that I know her. Her stubborn temper has hardly changed in the past 10 years. I quite admire this girl. Zofia walked up to Kaylan and said to Chi Hanfan, if she is willing, I can arrange a suitable job for her and bear all her medical expenses. The Soma Consortium is now planning to develop into the military industry, and talents like her should have a lot of room to develop. It depends on her own wishes. In fact, she has always had an obsession in her heart. If she doesn't let go of this obsession, I'm afraid she Obsession? What obsession? Kaylan asked in confusion, and Hound and the others also came over curiously. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 336. The commander who issued the wrong order. Is it possible that that idiot is still alive? Hound suddenly became excited. Did those losers in the military court accept bribes from this guy? Lao Chi, tell me, how did they sentence them? For this kind of crime, 10 humming shooting times are not too many. Chi Hanfan shook his head and said solemnly, this is not a matter of conviction and sentencing. That man, he did not accept the trial of the military court at all. Before the battle was over, he had disappeared until today. We don't know his whereabouts, we don't even know if he is still alive in this world. Is there such a thing? Hound punched the armrest of the chair hard. What's that guy's name? I only know that his name is Man. He is from the staff of the 4th Army. I have met him several times at the front line base. As for his last name, I don't know, and the 4th Army was later disbanded and reorganized twice. There is a lot of personnel information. It can't be found anymore. This guy must be from those big families, and only they have the ability to save such a fool who deserves to be shot 10 times. Hound said through gritted teeth, with a hint of helplessness in his tone. Lao Chi, I didn't hit you. If you want to take revenge, I'm afraid it will be difficult. I know, so I have given up on this idea a long time ago, Chi Hanfan said, but Valentina has never been able to come out. If she continues like this, she will destroy herself sooner or later. I often tell her that since we are still alive, we should live well for those who died for us, but she is thinking about how to take revenge. Do you know why she killed that opponent in the last competition? Why? That was not a manslaughter, because the pilot was also named Man, and the commander from 10 years ago had the same name. Although Valentina and I both knew that the two were not the same person at all, she was still driven by a strong desire for revenge. Desire went to his head, and he tore the pilot out of the cockpit and kneaded him into a pulp in front of the referee. If it weren't for the protection of the competition rules, she would still be in jail now. Kaylan said, okay, the next competition is about to start. Lao Chi, you can open the communication channel and tell Valentina, let her forfeit the next game and replace me. Abstain? Why? Chi Hanfan was a little confused. 3 in a row is cool, but facing the ace pilot, there's no guarantee that she can win without any injuries, right? Saving a lot of maintenance costs is not a bad thing after all, not to mention, it also allows her to keep more of her trump cards. No. As for being studied so thoroughly by other teams, Kaylan gave the reason for abstaining. What do you mean? Can you face that ace pilot and win without any injuries? Chi Hanfan opened his mouth in shock, although he also participated in K-Ian's body modification, but for he and Valentina didn't know about K-Ian's abilities. I can't guarantee other maps, but this map, the commentator actually said something wrong. This map is not a venue tailor-made for the Hercules FA type, but for me and my machine. A tailor-made venue. If you are so insistent, then okay. Chi Hanfan pressed the communication device hanging on his ear. Valentina, you abstain from the next game and replace Kaylan. What's going on? Alex's surprised voice came from the loudspeaker. The Valentina player who won 2 cities in a row without any damage to her body actually chose to abstain. Let herself teammates come to fight against the opponent's last pilot. What kind of tactic is this? Isn't the choice of the hunting god hunting group a bit overestimated? In the commentary box, another veteran commentator frowned and said, although they won the first 2 games easily, the opponent in the 3rd game isn't the only player in the Grace Club who is certified as an ace pilot. This was originally a decisive battle between aces and aces, but the hunting gods chose to back down. In my opinion, there may be a situation where 2 will chase 3. Situation. Although we are all confused about this, the actions of the god hunting group are completely in compliance with the rules of the game, so we cannot interfere with this. Alex took over the conversation and continued to explain, I think, they should also know very well that abstention is equivalent to elimination. Even if there is no damage to the body, Valentina player can no longer play in this arena. With only 2 players left, how will they fight against each other? Where is Angre's trump card? Ah, contestant Kaylan from the hunting god hunting group has appeared. Wait a minute, his machine actually has no legs. Alex glanced at the information in his hand, according to the registration before the game. Information, player K. Ian's mecha is called mountain-like, and it also uses the Phoenix prototype skeleton. From this point of view, the design ideas and name of the mecha are quite appropriate. K. Ian's mecha was pulled onto the field by 2-wheeled tractors. Rather than being called a mecha, it would be more appropriate to say it was a fort. The entire lower body of the machine body, including the leg frame, has been integrated into a cone-shaped stable base. 32 largest anchors are installed around the base and are nailed deeply. Ground. In the rules of the competition, there is a concept of maintenance points upper limit. All accessories, weapons, and plug-in devices of the mecha will be counted as corresponding points. Different competition formats have different points limits, and K. Ian's machine for the body, all accessories related to mobility were removed, and the extra points were used to enhance firepower. It's like playing an MMORPG game where the character's agility points are reduced to 0 and then added to the strength. As for legs, are they necessary for Kaylan? The feet are just decoration. The big shots above won't understand. Kaylan, who was sitting in the cockpit, looked at the huge countdown projection in the middle of the venue and said with a smile. The moment the countdown reached 0, K. Ian's attack began. Rockets, micromissiles, heavy-duty railguns, particle beam cannons, all kinds of weapons were fired at the same time, and the scene was far more spectacular than the full launch of the Hercules FA type. 1,000 meters apart? Direct fire? How high can the hit rate be? The commentator who previously said that he wanted to let 2 chase 3 said with some disdain. However, except for the first 2 shells used to calibrate the ballistics, the remaining railgun shells and particle beams were like violent locks. In 2 seconds, there were a total of 17 shots, and none of them missed. As for those micromissiles and rockets, it was more like predicting the opponent's avoidance route in advance, completely blocking the ace pilot's movement. With almost no intervals of wild bombing, Angre's ace pilot was suffering from tons of attacks almost every second. He even thought that he was facing the siege of an entire mecha squadron, but he could not. The information on the display reminded him all the time that the other party only had 1 machine, and the distance between him and him was still 1,000 meters away. Faced with an opponent who can pause time at any time, conduct frame-by-frame analysis of the aircraft's movements, and predict its position and adjust its trajectory at the same time, no matter how coquettish Angre's ace pilot is, he cannot avoid K. Ian's attack. The moment the shield broke, he was on the verge of collapse and chose to surrender. In this kind of arena without any bunkers, facing an opponent with self-aim and headlock, do you want him to win with the head? P.S. The main content of this volume will be Valentina's story, and the protagonist K. Ian's role will be relatively small. In fact, you can also view Valentina as the protagonist of this volume. This part of the plot can also be regarded as my attempt to develop into a group drama. As far as the previous plot is concerned, the supporting characters are too thin in the subsequent content. I will try to improve it. If you have any opinions on these questions, you can also raise them directly in the comment area. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 337. When Kaylan and his mecha took the elevator and returned to the suspended platform, they suddenly discovered that there was an uninvited guest in their viewing area, the fat man from the Ye family group, Yayan. He seemed to have come alone, without a secretary or bodyguard. Kaylan looked back and saw, as expected, a luxury version of a motorcycle-style single-person aircraft parked in the innermost berth of the suspended platform. On the side of the aircraft there were still 2 huge butt marks on the leather saddle. Obviously, for this saddle, Yayan's weight was really too much for it. "Master Ye? Why are you so free to come to my place? As the organizer of the competition, shouldn't you be the busiest now?" Kaylan couldn't help but ask. "Sigh, I don't have anything to do with this competition. It's all my uncles and uncles who are running it. If I want to help them, they think I'm causing trouble." "Why, Mr. Kaylan doesn't welcome me," Yayan turned around. Said with a smile to Kaylan. "How can that be possible? Logically speaking, you are the host and I am the guest." "How can a guest not welcome the host?" Kaylan said. Anyway, their competition was over today, and he was not worried about Yayan. Their tactics were leaked. What's more, this fat man didn't look like the kind of guy who came to spy on the military. He, then I will watch the game here today, but you must not spread the news that I am here." Yayan suddenly lowered his voice and said, looking slightly unnatural. "What's going on? It seems that young Master Yes seems to have something to hide." Kaylan also lowered his voice and asked close to Yayan's ear. "Actually, in the final analysis, it's because of women." Yayan glanced at Sophia, who was not far away. After making sure that Sophia was not looking towards them, he spoke in a voice that only Kaylan could hear. Said, "Woman? Mr. Ye, you can't be a prostitute, you owe some love debt and then come to me to take refuge, right?" Kaylan lowered his voice even lower. He was surprised by this kind of thing. No wonder, for a rich and powerful young man like Yayan, it would be fine if he focuses on his career and is not flirtatious with women, but if he is an LSP like those guys from the Hounds, then facing a large number of there are a lot of beauties who can crawl into your bed with just a twitch of your fingers, even though not many of them can control that thing in their crotch. After listening to Ian's words, Yayan nodded with fear. "But, with Mr. Yes energy, which woman would dare to come to you for trouble? Although I am not very familiar with your circle, I have read a lot of such novels and TV series. If a rich man is right, I feel tired of my female companion. Isn't it just a matter of just waving a large sum of money to break up and find a new love? I'm thinking about the kind of woman who has no vision and wants to continue to be entangled with her after taking the money. There shouldn't be such idiots in reality, right?" Kaylan asked in confusion. "Alas, that's not the case. The woman who is causing trouble for me is the daughter of the Song family. Her family is no less powerful than my Ye family. How could I dare to offend her?" Yayan said. "Oh, I understand." Kaylan nodded with a sudden look on his face. "Are Mr. Ye and Miss Song already engaged?" "The engagement hasn't been set yet, it's just that she has been playing with me since she was a child, and the elders in the family have basically acquiesced." "The legendary childhood sweetheart?" Kaylan asked. "It's, almost. Then this kind of plot should usually develop towards sweetness. Why are you avoiding her instead? Did you make her angry?" Well, you are a man too, you should understand, right?" Yayan said hesitantly. He's a virgin, and he knows how to hammer at some point." The Hound also came up and interjected, "Hey, this young master of the Ye family, please tell me carefully what's going on. Maybe we can help you figure it out. There is strength in numbers, right?" "Brother Kaylan is actually still a virgin." Yayan was slightly startled, glanced at Sophia subconsciously, and then suddenly realized, "Oh, that's right, after all." "Don't talk about me, talk about your own business," Kaylan said with a black line on his face. "Oh, actually, it wasn't a big deal. I just went out drinking with my friends 2 days ago and met a pretty girl, and then, do you understand?" I understand," Kaylan nodded. "I've never eaten pork, so why haven't I seen a pig running? Then she found out, and she immediately came to the door with a .44-inch Magnum pistol. Oh my God, I know that gun. It was her father's collection. In the hunting game, I watched that thing knock down a wild boar weighing more than 200 kilograms with one shot. When Yayan mentioned the word wild boar, Kaylan couldn't help but look at his fat figure. Well, although this guy is indeed very fat, he should still be under 200 kilograms. She wants to kill you, Kaylan said in shock. That shouldn't be the case, right? Besides, isn't there anyone who can stop her? How do I know if she is serious? Even if she doesn't really kill me, being rubbed by that gun is probably enough to keep me lying in the medical cabin for a few months. Yayan said with lingering fear, his face, the fat meat on her body was trembling. That's not right, Mr. Ye, I have a few questions. Do you think you can answer them? Hound frowned, looking thoughtful. First of all, you are not engaged, right? Yes, not engaged. Secondly, although the elders of the two families have tacitly approved of your relationship, they have not made it clear. Although they remain ambiguous, they have no intention of letting you two be together, right? That's more or less it? As for the third question, it may be a little offensive, but I hope Mr. Ye won't take it personally. Mr. Ye, do you think you are the kind of man who is so handsome that you are so handsome and full of charm that the opposite sex can't stop? Handsome, Yayan smiled bitterly and patted his belly. I still know it in my heart. With my figure, I definitely can't match adjectives like handsome and handsome. As for things like charm, my charm is probably money. Anyway, I basically rely on money to pick up girls. Then based on your description, Mr. Ye, a new question arises. Since you have no obvious advantage in this area, and the lady is not short of money, why is she so devoted to you? Since she can't see if she is used to your fraternity, then she can treat you as an ordinary friend and find a boyfriend who meets her requirements. Wait a minute, the hound suddenly slapped his head, stared at Yayan mysteriously, and asked in a weak mosquito-like voice, could you have already, given that girl to that girl, bar? Yayan first took a breath, then looked at the hound with extremely surprised eyes, and then stuttered, how did you tell? Do you still need to look at this? It's obvious, although many young men from wealthy and aristocratic families have experienced many women when they get married, women are just the opposite. The more noble girls tend to put there, the more important chastity is. Excluding a few relatively open-minded free women in the new era, 95.58% of aristocratic girls basically remain virgins when they get married, Hound said in the tone of an authoritative expert. Kaylan couldn't help but look at him with suspicion. Where did this guy get this data that is accurate to 2 digits after the decimal point? Is it possible that these data also come from the legendary Johns Hopkins University survey report? P.S. Thanks to book friend 2018010222034795 for the 200 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 338. Didn't I say before that she and I grew up playing together? She was probably only 14 years old at that time, mainly out of curiosity. Okay, stop it, stop talking, this book will be gone if you keep talking. Kaylan quickly interrupted Yayan's memories. So what are you going to do now? You can't stay here forever, right? I'm going to hide for a few days to avoid the limelight and wait until her anger subsides. Yayan said, suddenly changing the subject. How about we join your hunting group? For the reason of going on a mission, she ran outside the Ark and dragged her away for a month, and when she came back, she would have almost forgotten about it. No, Kaylan shook his head like a rattle. Exploring the ruins is a life and death job. If you have any trouble outside, the Ye family will not let our entire hunting group suffer. I know, I mean, on the surface, I joined your hunting group, but in fact, I hired you as my guards. Let's just find a few low-level ruins that have been explored to a great extent, and treat them as you are on a trip. Brother Kaylan, I have seen your strength before at the cocktail party. Compared with your teammates, they must be masters. With you here, nothing will happen. It's still not possible, Kaylan flatly refused. You may not believe it, but any ruins we go to, no matter how safe they were before, will turn into dangerous places with no life or death after we enter. Like hounds, I don't even dare to guarantee that I can escape alive, so how can I take you with me? Are you lying to me? If this is the case, there will be big problems in the knockout rounds. There's a big problem in the knockout round? What do you mean? Kaylan asked with some confusion, but in his heart, there was suddenly a feeling that something was wrong. Part of the reason why I came here this time is to reveal this matter to you. Yan lowered his voice. In order to make the game more enjoyable and have higher ratings, the entire knockout stage competition system has been modified. The venue outside now is just a venue for the group stage. Modify the competition system, change the venue. Wait a minute. According to you, is it possible that the venue for the knockout round will be moved to a certain ruins? Kaylan reacted instantly. Yes, the venue for the knockout round is set up in a C-class ruins 460 kilometers away from here. I remember the name of this ruins is called Sandstone Waste City. C-039 Abandoned Sandstone City, the ruins of the Alpha civilization discovered in the early days of Ark's landing, is very dangerous. After years of exploration, more than 90% of the area in the ruins has been discovered. The only characteristic of this ruins is it is large enough, and the terrain is very complex. A rift valley with a depth of more than 300 meters runs through the city. The entire city is also divided into two main building groups, the upper city area on the surface and the lower city area at the bottom of the canyon. There are still some remaining suspended structures between the upper city and lower city. Kaylan looked at the information found on his phone and muttered silently. That damn place. What, are you planning to play hide and seek in the knockout round? The hound couldn't help but complain. There is a battle royale online game commonly known as Chicken Eater. Have you heard of it? Yan asked. Not only have I heard of it, but I have also played many chicken eating games. Just 2 days ago, I also logged into the Apex Jail Simulator, which is a sci-fi style chicken eating game. What's interesting is that there are a lot of cheating orphans. It seems that the organizers of the tournament are planning to make the knockout competition into a chicken game mode. Fighting chicken in a mecha, this is quite new. Wait a minute, chicken. What kind of chicken? Roast chicken or fried chicken? Kaylan, please explain to me what the rules of this game are. First Hound, who is rarely exposed to games on weekdays, asked again and again. Road. Chicken is just a common name among players, because there used to be a game called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. After winning the first place, it would display good luck, eat chicken tonight, so there is this saying. To be precise, said that this type of game should be called a battle royale game, which puts a number of players into a shrinking limited area and allows the players to fight each other. The player or group of players who survives in the end counts as the winner's game. Tisk, it sounds like raising voodoos. Then we just have to hide and wait for others to kill each other, and then come out to reap the benefits, Hound said. This is indeed a tactic, but generally the designers of battle royale games will find ways to force players to fight, for example, the concept of safe zones. As the game progresses, the area available for players to move will increase. As the area becomes smaller and smaller, the number of players per unit area will increase, and the tactic of simply shrinking will not work at this time, Kaylan explained. In addition to the safety zone, there is also the issue of supplies. Yan interrupted. According to the new rules of the knockout competition, your mecha cannot bring any weapons or additional equipment into the arena except for a standard fighting knife. The maintenance points limit is also very low, so low that at the beginning everyone is almost a blank slate, whether it is firearms, ammunition, shields, or even things like outer armor, thrusters, and replacement parts. All have to be obtained by exploring within the competition area. At the same time, the energy crystals you carry at the beginning are also limited. In other words, if you are unlucky and do not find the crystals in the ruins, the mecha will not be able to go very far. Paralyzed due to energy depletion. Although the event organizers will put a certain amount of supplies in every corner of the venue, these supply points are very scattered, and the amounts at each place are not very large. Yan continued. In other words, to avoid fighting and develop, it is better to rob other contestants, otherwise, in the finals, the mechas with a blank slate and have not fought much and the mechas that come all the way and are fully armed will have no combat power. There will be a huge gap, but if you choose to fight, you have to pay attention to the consumption of ammunition and crystals, as well as the risk of being persuaded by other teams. There are really many factors to consider. Kaylan frowned and said, by the way, what is the specific competition format? It's impossible to cram all the qualifying teams into one game, right? Yan replied, of course not. There will be a total of 64 teams qualifying from the group stage. These 64 teams will be divided into 4 divisions. If each team plays 3 people, the number of people in a game will be 48 people. In these 4 competition areas, as long as the participating teams enter the top quarter, they will advance, and the remaining 3 quarters will be eliminated. Then the top quarter teams of the 4 competition areas will be brought together, for the finals. Oh, by the way, Yan seemed to have thought about something, and then said to Kaylan, are there any mechanics among your contestants? The maintenance mechanic on the personnel list cannot follow the players into the arena. Replacing equipment, adding accessories, and repairing the machine body all have to be completed by the players themselves. If there is not a mechanic among the 3 people, it will be a big trouble. Mechanic, this is not a problem. The mechas in our team are basically modified by Lighten and Chi Hanfan, it's just that it's a bit difficult for me to choose this candidate. Kaylan pondered. Deo, logically speaking, his ability should be able to play a key role in this game, but the problem is that his driving skills are very average. If the immovable mountain is replaced by a blank skeleton, there will be no before he obtains enough weapons and ammunition. He is basically a loser with no combat effectiveness. Not only is he unable to provide any help to his teammates, but he will become a burden to them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 339. In this case, 2 positions among the 3 have been finalized, and the remaining one will be chosen between you and Akira Asano, Hound said. With an outsider like Yan present, Hound was embarrassed to speak too bluntly, but at least in his opinion, Ian's priority should still be above Asano Akira. After all, the venue for the knockout round is an Alpha Civilization ruins, and Kaylan has the ability to read Alpha text. In the ruins, the advantages this ability can bring to them are immeasurable, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it can even determine victory or defeat. Actually, you don't necessarily need that kind of professional mechanic. Yan added, the accessories placed in the arena are all modular in design. As long as someone has mastered the daily maintenance of the mecha, look at the 2 you can see how to assemble it right away. That little girl Valentina should be able to do it, right? The Hound said to himself while picking at the stubble on his chin with the nails of his thumb and forefinger. If I remember correctly, Strangler Squadron it is considered an independent combat unit. When performing missions outside, they are all equipped with mechas and will not be equipped with professional mechanics who accompany the team. In this way, everyone is basically required to master certain skills. Prepare your skills. Unlike those club players who only need to master driving skills and logistics support and don't have to worry about it at all, pilots with military background need to master more skills. After all, the conditions on the battlefield and the competition field are completely incomparable. The hound stood up, waved to Chi Hanfan, and shouted, "Hey, Lao Chi, come here, I'll see you if I need anything. Oh, by the way, there's Valentina and Leighton, you guys come here too." A few of them had gathered at the porthole, watching the second game in the field below. This game was no less exciting than the opening game just now. The teams on both sides were wealthy clubs, and the competition format was still a team melee, all 6 colors. An ace pilot fought fiercely in the field, and several commentators spoke so fast that they felt like they were suffocating. However, under the greetings of the hounds, several people gave up watching the game and walked over. "What's the matter, old dog? We are busy studying other participating teams. Damn, those 2 groups below are 6 ace pilots. Fortunately, we didn't run into them just now," Leighton muttered. "Road. There will be videos to watch later on in the game. If young Master Ye leaves later, you won't have anywhere to look for this exclusive information." Hound curled his lips and said, "Master Ye, is this Fat, a friend of Kaylan?" "Yeah. Yes Consortium. Is he the young master from Yes Consortium?" Leighton was stunned for a moment. "Just now Miss Soma just said he was a friend of Kaylan, so you are Ye Yan? The young master Ye Yan who sent someone to deliver the new type of skeleton? Okay, if you want to lick it, there will be time for you to lick it. Now let's get down to business," the hound said and gave Leighton a hard stomp. "Business? What business?" "The format of the knockout round has been changed to a battle royale mode," Kaylan said, attracting everyone's attention. He repeated the information Ye Yan had just provided in as concise words as possible, and then looked at Chi Hanfan and Valentina. "Old Chi, if it is to assemble modular design components, can Valentina do it?" Of course, if the soldiers from the Strangler Squadron couldn't even protect their own bodies, they would have died long ago. Chi Hanfan suddenly paused in the middle of his words. He coughed twice, and then immediately the topic changed. "In fact, modular design accessories are originally prepared for people who are not very proficient in mechanical maintenance. However, these things are expensive and wasteful, so in non-emergency situations, no one will use the modules at all. Use spare parts to repair the mecha." Chi Hanfan continued, "For example, if the heatsink in the Valkyrie's back thruster is broken, then for me, I only need to replace the broken heatsink with a new one, and the repair cost will not exceed 500 credits, but if you replace it with modular accessories, the entire thruster backpack will need to be replaced with a new one, which would cost enough to buy hundreds of radiators." "Okay, it looks like I'm going to be on the bench again." Leighton touched the back of his head with some depression. "To be honest, before I played against Valentina, although I also knew that I an ace machine there is a big gap between the teachers, but I always thought that I could still struggle a few times." "Indeed," grumbled the hound, "everyone watching the game will think, I can do it, too. But you can only know if you actually fight." Leighton sighed deeply. "I still don't want to go to the ace pilots anymore. I have to deal with the ace pilots of other clubs. Apart from ace versus ace, it's just you and me. Only Akira Asano can do this." It is certain that he was unwilling to give up, but Leighton also knew how much he weighed, so he simply gave up his starting position. There were only 6 games in total on the first day, and they ended quickly. The remaining half a day was basically an exhibition of the new frame of the YIP Consortium, since most of the machines participating in the competition used this Phoenix skeleton, so the popularity of the exhibition is still quite high. Regardless of whether they can afford it or not, the audience still gathered under the booth to take a closer look at this new skeleton that was blown up to the sky by the Ye family group. The Phoenix skeleton is actually just like that. Although Ye Yan was right next to him, Chi Hanfan had no scruples when talking about these things. There are so many areas that can be improved, especially in terms of joint strength. The prototype skeleton it is considered easy to use because it uses parts containing 45% nano alloy, but I see that the nano-alloy content of mass-produced joint parts has shrunk to 9%, which is not even as good as the 12% of the Raider 3 frame. Maybe the YIP consortium has commercial considerations in doing this, but if I were a person in the military procurement department, I would rather choose the old version of the skeleton than purchase the Phoenix mass-produced model. I actually don't know much about the technical department, Yan said with a smile, but if you need it, I can ask them to customize a Type 0 version with 45% nano-alloy content for you. It's no problem if it's more high-end. Actually, the approach of the YIP consortium is not incomprehensible. For the mass-produced version, cost control must be considered. This Phoenix skeleton is for competition use at a glance. Military skeletons simply don't need so many movable joints. The more the alloy is, the worse the overall reliability and durability will be. If used for competition, 9% nano-alloy content is more than enough, Layton said. Moreover, this will also facilitate the launch of subsequent models, such as adding 0.5% nano-alloy. The alloy content has been reduced, some of the original defects have been slightly optimized, and the appearance has been slightly changed. Isn't this a new frame? 1, 2, and 3 generations of Phoenix, with the price of each generation increasing by more than 10%. It's really a new frame. It's just a routine operation. Although I don't usually participate in those things, it seems, that's really what happened. Yan said with some embarrassment. Isn't this method just like squeezing out toothpaste? Lan said, this reminds me of a very famous company in the old era. What company? Curious Yan couldn't help but ask. Intel. In the old era, it and AMD almost monopolized the home computer CPU market. Lan shrugged, but now you can see that AMD still has 1/3 of the market share, and the brand Intel has long since disappeared without a trace. Is this killing yourself by squeezing toothpaste while you're still alive? This time it was Layton's turn to be curious. Absolutely. Consumers are not fools. After being played by merchants time and time again, they naturally choose to vote with their feet. After such teasing, everyone was no longer interested in the exhibition of the new skeleton. After parking the suspended platform at the organizer's designated berth, they took the elevator back to the ground, the venue for the mecha competition. The reason why tickets are so expensive is because they also include room and board during the game. In order to prevent spectators from sleeping and eating in the stadium, the family group even built a permanent base not far from the stadium. Like the viewing area, the rooms in the base are also divided into VIP areas and economic areas. The Hound only ran to the economic area to take a look, and then immediately ran back dejected. It stinks, it really stinks, he covered his nose and said angrily, there are 16 beds in a room of less than 10 square meters, which is more crowded than a dormitory in a military camp. This is not the most terrifying thing. A corridor, 24 rooms, a total of 384 people, actually share a bathroom. Damn, the feces and urine are overflowing into the corridor. The smell is almost the same as there are enough biological and chemical weapons to fight. According to the description of the Hound, there were some subtle changes in everyone's expressions. Just thinking about it is very exciting, not to mention that the Hound's sense of smell is extremely sensitive, and this smell is particularly lethal to him. Okay. Layton breathed a sigh of relief with a look of luck. In the past 2 years, I originally planned to save money and buy an ordinary ticket to watch the game. You must know the accommodation provided by the organizer. The conditions are so bad, I would rather build a floor in the viewing area. There's nothing we can do about this kind of thing. Yan said helplessly, actually, the price of ordinary tickets is already very close to the cost price. The cost of building and maintaining a stadium of this size is too terrifying. One time I accidentally glanced at the bill on my dad's computer. Even I was shocked by the amount of expenses. Just one tree in the tropical jungle venue costs tens of thousands of credits. In order to provide the audience with the best if you want a good viewing experience, the cost can only be found elsewhere. So, it is most comfortable to watch the live broadcast of prostitution at home, Kaylan said with deep understanding. Fortunately, the conditions in the VIP area are still much better than those in the economic zone. Although not as good as the luxury hotel on the Ark, it is at least much better than Kay Ian's original residence in the North 5th District. Counting Sophia and Yayan, the number of rooms assigned to Kaylan and the others was even vacant. However, when Kaylan opened the door of the first bedroom, he was shocked to find a pretty girl sitting on the bed. A girl as beautiful as Sophia. Huh? Excuse me, did you go to the wrong room? I made the right move. The girl stood up and walked towards Kaylan step by step with an angry expression. Suddenly, she raised her finger, pointed behind Kaylan, and shouted loudly, "Damn fat man, stop here, don't even think about running away." Kaylan subconsciously turned around and saw that Yayan, who was following them, had already slipped to the door of the living room and had already stepped out with one foot. "Stop," the girl shouted again, quickening her pace again. Yayan at the door looked at Kaylan pleadingly and mouthed to him, "Help, stop her. Stop her." Kaylan looked at the girl, then at Yayan, and immediately stood up against the wall, with his hands close to the middle line of his trousers, his eyes staring directly at the ceiling above his head, with a look of "It's none of my business, I don't care, I know, I didn't see it look." This girl is obviously the daughter of the Song family, who was the childhood sweetheart that Yayan mentioned. It is difficult for an upright official to handle household affairs. I am not even an upright official, so I should not get involved in this matter. Seeing Kaylan and others getting out of the way, Yayan's expression changed from panic to despair. Without Kaylan and the others to stop him, he would have been unable to escape. Instead of being overtaken and ravaged, it would be better to surrender directly and maybe get a lighter sentence. Song Xiun, you, calm down. I admit that I was at fault first, but can we sit down and have a good talk? No matter how big the problem is, it can be solved. I still have my friend here. If things get serious, it will be bad for both of us. Please don't be impulsive." The girl did not speak, but put her hand into her pocket. Is this girl really planning to come and shoot Yayan? Kaylan was slightly startled and thought to herself, a magnum pistol with a caliber of 0.44 inches, hitting Yayan in the head and torso would probably kill her on the spot. Sudden death, if the blow is to the limbs, the outcome will definitely be missing arms and legs. Although the limbs can be regenerated with current medical technology, the massive bleeding alone is enough to be fatal. He can't let the eldest young master of Yes Consortium die under his nose. Just when Kaylan was about to stop him, he finally saw the black thing the girl took out, and forcefully pulled it out. The words "stuck in my throat" were swallowed again. Fortunately, it's not a magnum pistol, just a non-lethal stun gun. After a burst of ecstasy screams, Yayan, with his hair standing on end and a puff of green smoke, fell to the ground. The girl directly picked up one of his legs and dragged him out with some effort. Before going out, when doing so, he did not forget to turn around and give Kaylan a slightly apologetic smile. "Hey, this girl is so polite. She didn't forget to close the door for us before leaving." Hound touched the top of his head and squeezed out this sentence. "Indeed, not only polite, but also gentle." Kaylan nodded in agreement. In his opinion, as long as he didn't take out the magnum, he was really gentle. P.S. These are transitional chapters recently, which may be a bit watery. I am currently writing the plot outline of the knockout part. Although the subject of chicken eating has almost been written out in online novels, I will still add as much as possible new things come in. Plus, AMD yes. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi San. Chapter 340. Generally speaking, teams participating in mecha competitions are divided into 3 levels. First of all, there is the rich level. This level is undoubtedly a strong team. To become a rich level team, you need to have at least 3 ace pilots, and some rich families with deep foundations, except for the starting 3 in addition to all of them being ace pilots, even the 4th substitute was an ace or quasi-ace pilot. Every rich team is a strong candidate for the championship. Unless these teams are placed in the so-called group of death, qualifying is basically a certainty for them. The second level is the ordinary level with 1 or 2 ace pilots. This type of team has the most teams among the participating teams. People like Kaylan and the Angres Club belong to this level. As for the remaining level, it is called the make-up level. The main feature of this type of team is that it does not even have an ace or quasi-ace pilot. You can know this from the literal meaning. Teams like this are basically made up of numbers. Without the ace in charge, it is impossible to qualify from the group stage. The concept of ace pilot comes from the term ace pilot, ace, in the old era. Generally speaking, only pilots who shoot down 5 or more enemy planes in combat can win this honor. In human history, among them, the ace pilot with the most number of kills was Major Erich Hartmann of the Luftwaffe during World War II. From 1942 to 1945 in the old era, in just 3 years, he shot down 352 enemy aircraft. But on the Ark, it is no longer realistic to rely on kill statistics to evaluate the ace pilot. The war within mankind has long ended, and in the battle against the indigenous creatures of Alpha Planet, it is difficult to compare the kill numbers. Exact statistics, compared with killing 5 crackjaws and killing 5 thunder beasts, the difference in gold content is huge. At this time, the ace standard of the new era naturally emerged. Any pilot who has won the steel blade medal in the military, or successfully defeated 3 opponents with M9 level licenses in a 1-on-3 battle, and a pilot whose own body is not seriously damaged can obtain the title of ace pilot. The mecha driving license on the Ark is divided into 9 levels. The lowest is M1, the highest is M9. Pilots who come from the military basically fall into the former category, while most pilots who come from professional competitive clubs can only rely on the second method to obtain the title of ace. This has resulted in an interesting phenomenon. Most people who have served in the military do not agree with the second type of ace. However, Chi Hanfan said that Valentina had a chance to become a real ace, referring to "That's what I mean." Of course, ace pilot is just an honorary title. Although it reflects the pilot's own strength level to a certain extent, it cannot be used as an accurate benchmark. After all, the new ace who shot down 5 enemy planes is an ace, and Hartmann, who shot down 352 aircraft, was also an ace. Kaylan and the others are in Group A apart from themselves and Angres Club, as well as the 2 powerful teams from the second Fight of the Gods. 3 of the remaining 6 teams are make-up numbers. 2 of the teams are ordinary on the same level as them, and only one is a quasi-wealthy team with 1 ace pilot and 2 quasi-ace pilots. The so-called quasi-ace level generally refers to a pilot who has completed a 1-on-3 challenge, but his own body has been severely damaged and he can hardly win. Although these people are not as good as real aces, they can still be considered as letting them win. Every club is eager for outstanding talents. The opponent Kaylan and the others will face in the second game is this quasi-wealthy team. But this team's machine is a little weird. Hound sat on the sofa in the living room with his legs crossed, looking at the public information of each participating team in his hand, and couldn't help but muttered. Strange. Ivan put the wine bottle on the coffee table, walked over, took the information from the Hound, looked at it twice, and his eyebrows wrinkled. Beast-type mecha? How did this machine pass the inspection? Didn't it say that the participating machines are only 2 types, humanoid 4-meter class and humanoid 6-meter class? Ivan asked. The 4-meter and 6-meter humanoids refer to the skeleton. Leighton picked his teeth with the metal toothpick that popped out from the end of his mechanical little finger. I was on this beast-type mecha before the competition even started. Pay attention, it uses the standard steel sand type 6 skeleton. This is a 6-meter humanoid mecha skeleton. It was developed by Mokang Industry in New Era 47. It is a high-end cargo that has just been launched 3 years ago. He continued, the Steel Sand series of skeletons, from Type 1 to Type 6, are all on the list of skeletons available for the competition, but this series of skeletons has a special feature. As long as the locks on the joints are released, the skeleton on the all-active joints of the mecha can rotate 360 degrees in both forward and reverse directions. The mechanic who modified this mecha just put its limbs on the ground and then folded all the knees, which did not violate the rules of the game. Then what's the benefit of changing to all fours? You're missing 2 arms to hold weapons. Zwilligito lay on the carpet and tried to simulate the movements of the beast-shaped mecha. I always feel, this is very awkward. It feels awkward because you are a human being, not a machine. As long as there is no problem with the transmission structure, the mobility of this mecha will only be stronger, Chi Hanfan said in a deep voice. Actually, I have always believed that the humanoid mechas are not the best form of mechas. The reason why the mecha competition requires the use of humanoid skeletons is purely for the viewing pleasure of the competition. Generally speaking, in actual combat, all-terrain mechas will be bipedal like a walker or multi-legged like a spider. In open plains, whether it is a tracked or wheeled armored vehicle, they are all more cost-effective than mechas. Layton took over the words and said, although animal-shaped mechas cannot hold weapons, the power they can erupt from their forelegs is faster than humanoid legs, and their crawling posture can also be reduced. Frontal bombardment area. As for the weapons, they can be mounted on the shoulders and back. The sharp claws at the end of its limbs also allow it to have stronger melee capabilities than humanoid mechas. Oh, by the way, pay attention to this wolf head. Layton pointed to the information. The photo in said, although the other party has not disclosed all the information, don't think that this wolf head is purely a decoration. I bet that there must be a weapon in the mouth of this wolf head, either a large caliber railgun or a gate cluster laser cannon. Layton arched his waist, raised his arms forward, made a pounce gesture, and said, imagine this guy is moving at high speed on 4 legs, and you are already close to him before you even aim at it, then jumps up and pounces on your body, clasps the shoulders with both claws, opens the wolf's mouth, and shoots you directly with the muzzle in the throat. If you are holding a weapon, it will be worse in close combat. It's difficult to aim, and the too long barrel can become a burden. But this machine body is not without its shortcomings. It has too many magical modifications, and many parts are no longer compatible with standard modular components. If it reaches the knockout stage, it will not be able to use many of the materials put in the arena. Use it, Chi Hanfan said. But the problem is, we met this guy in the group stage. Layton let out a long breath. 1-on-1 regular season, the venue is an abandoned city, this game is not easy to win. By the way, Valentina, how sure do you think you are? I don't know. Valentina shook her head, but I will try my best. P.S. Thank you Yanya for the 1000 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 341. Don't take risks. If something goes wrong, give up immediately. This is just a group match, losing one game will not affect qualifying, Chi Hanfan said to Valentina with a straight face. I know, Valentina replied. Hey, to be honest, Lokai, if Valentina's blonde hair and blue eyes hadn't looked anything like you, I would have doubted whether she was your daughter. Hound teased. By the way, are you married? I'm not married. I originally planned to wait until I retired at the age of 35 before considering this matter. You also know what happened later. A dark look flashed in Chi Hanfan's eyes. As for Valentina, when she was in the squadron, those boys treated her as their most precious little sister. During that mission, they risked their lives to protect her. Since they entrusted Valentina in my hands, I naturally have the responsibility to take good care of her. Valentina, like me, was born in the breeding center. She has no other relatives on the Ark. The information dealer on the Kuranto forum had investigated the backgrounds of Valentina and Chi Hanfan. In addition to finding except for the information about the missing commander, all other information has been checked thoroughly. As a child born in a foster care center, Valentina spent the first dozen years of her life almost exactly like Kaylan. She grew up in a public care institution and received 9-year compulsory education. In terms of martial arts and fighting, he also showed talents far beyond ordinary people. Because she wanted to see the outside of the Ark, she went to the recruitment site alone when she was 15 years old and wanted to enlist in the army, but she was rejected because she was not old enough. But at that time, she happened to be a graduate of the Military Aviation Academy. People were recruiting new students there, so they decided to let Valentina sit in a simulator and try it out to see if she was qualified to be admitted to the aviation school. Coincidentally, the simulator had some malfunctions. The program that could only choose a basic training aircraft somehow turned out to be the only Viking fighter in the Air Force that could land and transform into a mecha. Valentina had just entering the testing process. The people in charge of admissions discovered the problem, but the testing had already started, so they did not stop it. The operation of a Viking fighter is far more difficult than that of a training aircraft, but Valentina only read the most basic training aircraft operation tutorial 15 minutes ago, and almost no one thought she could pass the test. In fact, as the staff expected, the Viking fighter only stayed in the air for less than 30 seconds before switching to mecha mode and landing on the ground. The content of the test was very simple, as long as it flew from the base to the designated mission area. That's fine. There's no combat or bad weather. It's a difficulty level specially designed for novices who are new to flying for the first time. But when the Viking fighter lands on the ground, the difficulty of the entire test changes. Because in the test scene, there are wandering monsters on the ground. This was originally the content of another ground attack test. In order to save storage space, the programmer put the content of these two tests into the same scene. Inside. However, Valentina, who was piloting a Viking fighter, forced her way out of the ground and walked all the way to the finish line in the form of a mecha. The aviation school did not admit her, but sent her directly to the best mecha military school on the Ark. After a year of rigorous training, she was assigned to the Strangler Squadron as an elite reserve. Even Chi Hanfan may not necessarily know the details of these stories, but they were still dug out by the intelligence dealer. But even so, there was still no news related to the commander. This was also from the side. It reflects how terrifying the power behind that person is. The famous Strangler Squadron, now only you two are left, and the unit designation has been revoked. When it comes to this, the Hound's tone is not only sighing, but also full of indifference. Hidden anger. Lao Chi, when this happens, I will definitely find a way to seek justice for you. Even if I can't find that person, I have to restore the unit number no matter what. Oh, forget it. Chi Hanfan waved his hand. I have looked away. Besides, in order to get the hush money to treat Valentina's injuries, I had already signed an agreement with the military department. If we make trouble now, I will still be the one who is in the wrong. How could such a thing happen? Hound patted the armrest of the sofa angrily. Soldiers were injured and dying because of combat missions and wrong instructions from the headquarters. Not only did the military not bear the full medical expenses, but they also used this as an excuse. Blackmail, forcing you to sign a confidentiality agreement. This kind of agreement has no effect. At worst, it will expose the matter and let everyone know that those who are stepping on their heads are a bunch of bullshit. Nick, Chi Hanfan shouted in a deep voice, have you forgotten how you were forced to retire? Don't talk about this matter anymore. I don't want to cause unnecessary trouble because of an insignificant reputation, let alone you. He was also implicated in this matter. Okay, when this is over, we will find a way to find you a wife. A man in his 40s can't be a bachelor forever, right? By the way, you are not a virgin like Kaylan, right? Shut up, old dog. Before Chi Hanfan could speak, Kaylan glared at him viciously, but in the next second, Kaylan noticed that a gaze was on him, first on his face, head, and then gradually moved downward, chest, abdomen. Kaylan raised his head and met the half-smiling eyes of Sophia, who was standing by the window. You guys talk first. I'm going back to the room to rest. Today's game was a bit exhausting, Kaylan said to everyone. The time stop ability requires a lot of mental power. The hounds all know that. Fan even threw Kaylan a packet of spices that could soothe the mind and help him sleep. But when Kaylan walked into the bedroom, Sophia followed him in. So, Sophia, is something wrong? Can't I come in if you have nothing to do? Sophia said, and hung the camel-colored long windbreaker on the hanger next to the door. She was wearing a tight turtleneck cashmere sweater underneath, showing off her beautiful body curves. Do you want to sleep in this room? Then I'll change to another room. Kaylan subconsciously wanted to slip away. Can't this bed accommodate 2 people? Or are you not confident in yourself and worried that you will do something arrogant? Sophia chuckled. That's up to you. I have something to say first. My sleeping appearance is very ugly, and I don't know if I will snore at night. Kaylan simply thought about it. He thought that he was a man anyway. Is it possible that the other party could take advantage of him? Aren't you going to take a shower? Sophia pointed to the bathroom nearby. I'm tired and paralyzed, and I don't want to take a shower. Hunters like us who live outside all year round don't take a shower for dozens of days. If you don't like it, I can change the room immediately, Kaylan said. He felt if this method can be used to avoid the embarrassment of sharing the same bed, it would be a good strategy. Kaylan took off his shoes and threw himself directly into the quilt. He buried his face in the soft fabric to prevent the other party from noticing that his cheeks were getting hotter and hotter. But what he didn't expect was that Sophia also lay down. The 2 of them were lying side by side on the big bed, less than 10 centimeters apart. Kaylan could even feel the beating of the other person's heart. Sophia seemed calm, but her heart rate was not slow at all. This situation remained deadlocked for almost 10 minutes before Kaylan felt that his facial temperature gradually returned to normal. He turned around and faced the ceiling. He subconsciously wanted to put his arms behind his head, but as soon as he raised his arms, he remembered that there were still people around him. There was another person who had to be let go. Sophia's heart rate slowly returned to normal. When she heard Kaylan turning around, she turned her face sideways and silently stared at the profile of Kaylan, who was close at hand. Kaylan only felt the air exhaled by Sophia constantly hitting his neck and shoulders, making him feel slight itching. As a last resort, he had to move a few centimeters closer to the bed. I watched today's game very carefully, Sophia said proactively, breaking the awkward atmosphere between the 2. What's wrong? Your long-distance shooting is very accurate, so accurate that it is almost beyond a normal range. I don't know, that is your ability and has nothing to do with your body. I know you have a secret that you are hiding from me. This secret your friends know, but I don't. Kaylan didn't answer. He felt a sense of vigilance inexplicably in his heart. This woman's intuition and insight were too terrifying. To be honest, he already regretted participating in this mecha competition. You are always wary of me. In comparison, your teammates are more worthy of your trust, Sophia continued. Yes. Kaylan replied bravely, after all, they have experienced life and death with me, and more than once. I understand. Sophia's voice was very gentle. Don't worry, I won't force you to tell me those secrets. The choice is yours. If one day, you feel that I can be trusted by you, then it's not too late for you to tell me those things. Why? Kaylan was a little confused. People like me are actually very dangerous. Why would you choose me? Because I thought you were special from the beginning, and as my contact with you deepened, this judgment was gradually confirmed. As for why I chose you, shouldn't Mujiang be the nature of living things? especially for female creatures who are relatively vulnerable. But what if the secret is enough to cost those who know it their freedom, or even their lives? Then you should guard it well and never let anyone who shouldn't know it. P.S. Thanks to Liu Yigun for the 300 starting coins. P.S. Driving? It doesn't exist. I can't even tell which brake is on the left and which is the accelerator on the right. How can I drive? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 343. Okk-Lan suddenly felt that he seemed to have an unusual talent in chatting to death. In this case, it seems that the only option is to resort to sleep escape. He pondered for several seconds before forcefully squeezing out a few words from his mouth. Well, we have a game tomorrow, go to bed early, good night. Good night, Sophia replied. She turned around and pulled up the quilt. This quilt was very big, and it was more than enough for 2 people under it, but K-Lan still didn't have the nerve to get into the quilt. He covered himself with the jacket he took off, put his hands around his chest, and closed his eyes. Fortunately, at least the pillow is divided into 2, not a long pillow that is as wide as the bed, he thought happily. When the embarrassment gradually receded, fatigue and sleepiness quickly came back. Although it was an excuse, he didn't lie. In today's battle with the ace of the Angres Club, he had launched it at least nearly 100 times. Although the ability to stop time only lasts for a short moment each time, together, it still puts a huge burden on K-Ian's spirit. The nerves that were still in a tense state gradually relaxed. Not long after, K-Lan felt that his consciousness sank into a seemingly boundless chaos. At this moment, shrill screams and wails exploded in the chaos without warning, as if a huge stone was suddenly thrown on the calm and dark lake. These sounds were like ripples on the water, interacting with each other. Collision and interference intertwined into a creepy and terrifying movement. These screams and wails, K-Lan is not unfamiliar. He can hear these sounds every time he activates Time Stop. He has long been immune to them, however, he is in a dream. Seems to have lost this immune ability. These sounds penetrated his body like a pervasive tide, copied themselves like infinitely proliferating cancer cells, and then spread. They overlapped many times, and the distorted voices were like the roar of a banshee, left and right in K-Ian's mind. Rushing to the right, as if to tear a hole in his head. This feeling was simply unbearable for him. For a moment, he almost blurred the line between dreams and reality. K-Lan wanted to wake up, but found that his body was tightly bound and could not move at all. This feeling was like the legendary ghost pressing the bed. He subconsciously looked around and saw countless corpses crawling out of the chaos at some unknown time. Among these corpses were the dead who had not yet completely decomposed and still roughly maintained their appearance in life, and some who had only the remains of the skeletons with forest-white bones were both male and female, old and young, trailing a long trail of blood behind them. They crawled towards K-Lan step by step. These corpses are the victims of the East 9th District incident. Among these corpses, K-Lan even saw the container that was killed by the Security Bureau agents at the beginning of the operation. Half of the farisode she wore was already on the ground, stained deep black by the dirty blood, and her entire body was covered with sarcomas of all sizes, like potatoes. Many of these sarcomas had already chapped, and smelly pus mixed with tissue fragments that had not yet completely melted continued to drip from the inside to her feet. Why do these things appear in my dreams? Is it because of overdrafting my ability? K-Lan was very confused, but the problem is, I have overdrafted several times before, but never like this. At this time, the corpses at the front had crawled in front of K-Lan. They stretched out their hands and grabbed K-Ian's ankles. K-Lan did not retreat, resist or struggle. He knew that this was just a dream, and these things can't really hurt you. What's more, what he wants to understand most now is the reason why these dead people appear in his dreams. Instead of choosing to escape, it is better to remain unchanged in response to changes. But just when the first corpse was about to catch Kaylan, a faint whimpering sound suddenly sounded around. When the corpses heard this whimpering sound, they all stopped moving. Then, like wax statues that came into contact with red-hot iron, they quickly melted into the chaos. What happened? Kaylan was suddenly shocked, but just like that, he found that he had regained control of his body. The chaos in his field of vision was quickly becoming blurry, and vaguely, the whimpering sound seemed to have turned into a faint sound. Wu's call, a certain coordinate was imprinted in the depths of Ian's memory. Kaylan suddenly opened his eyes. He sat up from the bed and glanced at Sophia next to him. Her breathing was even and gentle, and she was obviously in a deep sleep. This dream always feels so strange. Kaylan vaguely remembered that the calling voice seemed to tell him the coordinates, but when he tried to recall it, he couldn't remember anything. As for that voice, although it is somewhat similar to the cry for help that Kaylan heard in East 9 District, if you compare it carefully, you will find that there seems to be a huge difference between the two. In the dream just now, Kaylan, the voice he heard was sharper, like the voice of a newborn baby. Strange to say, in such a sharp voice, I could still hear a hint of calling. Maybe there was something wrong with my auditory center. Kaylan looked at the timer embedded in the wall and saw that it was only 1:30 in the morning. Kaylan thought about it and simply lay down again. If he slept until dawn, then just pretend that nothing happened. If this strange dream appears again, then he can take this opportunity to find out. However, when Kaylan woke up the next day, not to mention whether the second dream had appeared or not, even the memory of the dream had become extremely vague. The only thing he still remembered was that, a voice as sharp as a baby girl's. Kaylan remembered that the sounds he heard in the East 9th District, whether they were sobbing or cries for help, should have come from the Iron Maiden. The things inside had long been accompanied by. As a result, the entire East 9 District was bombarded into powder. Even if it was really a creature of the prehistoric species, it should have been extremely dead. Moreover, Kaylan also clearly remembered that at the moment when the East 9th District module was destroyed by the Ark's main gun, his body also had a corresponding reaction, which seemed to prove the connection between himself and that thing. It has been cut off. As for the black liquid that seeped into his palm, even if it still stays in his body, it should be considered an independent existence. In addition to giving himself the cheating ability of stopping time, this thing did not seem to cause any damage to the body. After that, Kaylan commissioned Ivan to conduct several comprehensive physical examinations on himself, and the results proved that his body is very healthy and no abnormality has been detected at all. There's nothing out of the ordinary wrong. Kaylan raised his right hand. The newly grown little finger and ring finger were almost exactly the same as the original ones. There were no scars or other marks left at the cutting place. If there was any difference, it was probably that the skin was slightly thicker than the original one. The other fingers are fairer and the nails should be slightly shorter and thinner. If an all-purpose medical cabin is used to regenerate amputated limbs, nails will not grow on the new limbs, and nail replantation must be performed separately. In terms of recovery rate alone, the medical cabin is completely inferior to Ian's own regeneration ability. But why wasn't it found during the physical examination? When Ivan was checking Kaylan before, not to mention regular urine and blood samples, even hair, skin, muscles, and even bone samples were collected, but those samples left his body. Apart from that, it seems to have lost this strange regenerative ability and has become the same as the tissues of normal people. After returning from the Tiankeng, Kaylan discussed the issue of regeneration ability with Ivan several times, but they could not come to any accurate conclusion. According to Ivan, unless Kaylan chopped off his head, try to see if you can grow a new head, otherwise, the research process will become extremely slow. Of course, there is another option, which is to surrender to the Institute. In that case, Kaylan would rather choose to cut off his head directly, which is better than being tied to the operating table and suffering all kinds of inhumane things. The torture is going to come with pleasure. At least I still maintain my human appearance and haven't turned into some weird creature. Kaylan comforted herself and sat up from the bed. Sophia woke up earlier than Kaylan, and there was still a trace of residual warmth on the side of the bed where she had slept. The sound of running water came from one side, and Kaylan turned around and saw the bathroom. The door is closed, and through the frosted glass on the door, you can vaguely catch a glimpse of the moving curve. Taking a shower, Kaylan muttered in his heart, but he did not open the door. It would be fine if the other party was wearing clothes or a towel, but if he was not wearing anything, the scene would be embarrassing. After thinking about it, he put on his clothes and walked out of the room. There was also a bathroom in the living room. Although he couldn't take a shower, it was still okay to brush his teeth and wash his face. As soon as he opened the door and went out, he saw Hound and Chi Hanfan sitting opposite each other at the dining table, eating breakfast and studying information about their opponents. "You two, you got up very early." Kaylan said hello to the two of them while putting on his coat. As a middle-aged person, isn't it normal for a shorter sleep time than a young person? But it's you, Kaylan. I didn't expect you to get up so early today, Hound said. Using a weird he looked at Kaylan with his eyes. Obviously there was something behind his words. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "No, no problem. As a man, of course you should put your career first instead of indulging in a gentle country. You have done a good job in this," Hound suddenly said seriously, but this expression could not be maintained for even a second. He stopped, and in a blink of an eye, he turned into the wretched appearance he had when Kaylan first saw him. He lowered his voice and asked, "Speaking of which, the taste of the young lady is pretty good, right?" Not only him, but also Chi Hanfan, who had always been serious, showed a charming smile to Kaylan, like Ant's smile. Ian's eyes widened, and for a moment he didn't know how to answer this question. "Last night, everyone watched you and the eldest lady enter the same room." Hound lowered his voice. "Don't tell me that you didn't do anything except sleep, right? Just sleep, otherwise what else do you want from me?" "Oh, you are embarrassed to say it, I understand, just sleep. Anyway, sleeping has many meanings, right?" "What's right?" "To your size," the Hound had already said this. Kaylan naturally understood what the old woman was criticizing and explained word by word. "Let me tell you this, those things in your head didn't happen at all." "No way? Are you still a virgin now?" Hound stood up, walked over, put his arm around Ian's shoulders, and said in his ear, "A beauty like the eldest lady, how can you bear it? Where to live? You don't really have any health problems, right?" The Hound glanced at the bedroom door and continued, "If you are sick, you need to be treated. Don't worry, I will definitely keep this matter a secret for you, and I will never let the eldest lady know that you have this obstacle. Let me tell you, even if she doesn't show it clearly now, when she reaches the age of 30, when she reaches that wolf-like age, if you can't be satisfied." Before Hound finished speaking, Kaylan covered his mouth. He wanted to explain to Hound that there was nothing wrong with his body, but the more he argued, the more it seemed that there was no silver in this place. He then thought about it, simply changed the topic. "Last night, I had a dream." "What dream?" "An erotic dream." "No. It's a nightmare. I dreamed about the victims who died in the East 9th District incident," Kaylan said solemnly. "Are you too mentally stressed?" The Hound's expression finally showed a change. "Is there anything special about that dream?" For ruin hunters, having nightmares is actually a normal thing, especially after completing some dangerous tasks. Even the most arrogant guy will inevitably dream of the terrifying things encountered in the ruins. Originally it was a normal thing, but the Hound still smelled something amiss from Ian's words. In my dream, a voice told me the geographical coordinates, but after I woke up, I couldn't remember it. The geographical coordinates, are they somewhere on planet Alpha? I don't know, I could only remember that such an incident happened after I woke up, but not even a vague impression of all the contents and details was left in my memory. P.S. Thanks to Lost Zewang for the 5,000 starting coins, and thanks to Z. Quiet for the 500 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 344. Could it be your imagination? The hound rubbed the stubble on his chin, frowned, and asked in a tentative tone. I'm not sure. Kaylan shook his head. The thing in the Iron Maiden was hit by a frontal bombardment from the Ark's main gun. With such destructive power, even a prehistoric species would never survive, Hound said. Maybe. Kaylan nodded and waved to the hound. Old dog, follow me. The two of them walked around the foyer, and after making sure that Chi Hanfan could not hear the conversation between them, Kaylan said seriously to the hound, suppose that thing is still alive, and it comes from the Ark Master. It survived the bombardment, so what do you think it will do? Tisk, if that thing is really still alive. The hound rubbed his temples vigorously with his index finger and closed his eyes and muttered, then I think, it must survive first. Survived. Yes, the hound opened its eyes and looked directly at Kaylan. Even if it is really alive, it cannot be unscathed, just like a seriously injured beast, it must find a safe enough place. Healing his injuries and gathering strength, but whatever he wants to do next, he must survive first. Nearly 2 months have passed since the East 9th District was destroyed. Combined with my own self-healing ability, even if the thing suffered severe trauma, 2 months is enough for it to recover as before. Kaylan continued, my ability comes from it, and the call that appeared in my nightmare last night should be the connection between me and it. The hound's face turned slightly pale. You mean, that thing, after recovering from its injury, wants to find you and take back those abilities of yours? I don't know. Kaylan shook his head, but it seems to want me to go somewhere. The coordinates. Well, it's just that I can't remember at all. Don't worry about this. Don't you Chinese people have a saying that there must be a road before the car reaches the mountain? It's useless for you to worry about this now, but you are worried and can't sleep well. Let me tell you, last night such a rare opportunity, what a pity. Hound took out a cigarette case. Would you like one? No, let's wait until everyone else has finished their breakfast and get ready to go to the stadium. We have 4 games today, Kaylan said. Faced with this unknown existence, he decided to give in. Before he figured out the true meaning of the coordinates, he would not take any more exploration missions for the time being. If that thing came to him on its own initiative, Kaylan would. I don't mind letting it take another close-range bombardment from the Ark's main gun. At 9 o'clock, everyone once again arrived at the suspended viewing platform that belonged to them, but what surprised Kaylan was that Yayan actually came earlier than them and sat on the seat next to him. Still sitting was the girl who stunned him and dragged him away yesterday. Yayan's childhood sweetheart, if Kaylan remembers correctly, should be called Song Xiun. Today she is wearing a blue and white porcelain Cheongsam-style dress, with smooth black straight hair draped over her shoulders, and a hairpin decorated with pearls and gold foil flowers and leaves inserted in her ear, but she is holding something in her hand. The thing she was playing with didn't quite match her outfit. It was a 0.44-inch Magnum pistol with a beautifully carved barrel and a black walnut handle. Although this gun could also be regarded as it is a rare work of art, but what attracts more attention is its terrifying destructive power and lethality. Seeing Kaylan and others coming up, Song Xiun first smiled and said hello, and then quickly stuffed the pistol into the cosmetic bag she carried. Fortunately, this is a short-barrel version of the Magnum pistol, otherwise this exquisite cosmetic bag would really not be able to fit this thing. To be honest, I won't be surprised if I see women taking out any weird things from their makeup bags in the future. Hound complained to Kaylan in a very low voice. but what I have to say is that Song Xiun's appearance is definitely one of the best among the women Lan has ever seen, and she can be regarded as a beauty on the same level as Sophia. It's just that the two are completely different beauties, so it's difficult to compare one with the other. With such a beautiful girl by his side, Lan felt that it was not unfair at all for Yan to get electrocuted. Not only Lan, but even Hound, when he saw Song Xiun and Yan sitting together, felt as if they had flowers stuck on them. Young Master Ye came so early. Did he come to see us for something? Lan glanced at Song Xiun beside Yan and asked. As for the deeper meaning of the sentence, he believed that Yan must have understood it. When he ran here yesterday, it was to take shelter from the limelight, but now the lead light he wanted to avoid was right next to him, so he even came to me, so it was obvious that there was something else going on. Yan smiled. To tell you the truth, I bet money on you. He held out 5 fingers, and Leighton asked subconsciously, have a deposit of 500,000. No, it's 500 million. Yan still had that playful smile on his face. This is all the funds I can mobilize. I also borrowed a lot from the buddies I have good friends with in the weekdays. I hope I can get it today. It's a big ticket earner. 500 million, even though Lan and the others already had a certain amount of wealth. When Yan said this number in an understatement, everyone was still shocked. If we lose, Mr. Ye, you won't find someone to buy our hands or feet, right? Leighton said subconsciously. No, no. But if you lose, I'm afraid I will have to go to the Song family to eat for the next year. Yan pretended to be pitiful, and at the same time glanced aggrievedly at Song next to him. Poetic rhyme. It's okay to come to my house for dinner, but you can eat whatever Tom eats. Who is Tom? Lan asked. The little kitten I raised is very well behaved, at least much better than someone else. Xiun, you won't be so cruel, right? Yan's expression suddenly changed. Don't you know whether I am cruel or not? Song Xiun said with a smile, which made Yan look even more embarrassed. You see, Brother Lan, you must win today, otherwise I will have to eat cat food for a year. Leaving aside the issue that the cat food that Song Xiun raised may be better than the food of most civilians, what Lan was most confused about at this time was why Yan suddenly bet a huge sum of 500 million on himself. You must know that in terms of strength, among the many participating teams, they can only be regarded as a mid-level team, not to mention, what they are facing today is a strong team with quasi-rich level strength. Why bet on us? Instead of betting on those wealthy clubs? In my opinion, it is safer to bet on those popular and strong teams, right? Lan asked immediately. I want to beat those strong teams, but their odds are too low, and the return rate is less than 1,000th. Moreover, even the strong teams will overturn sometimes. If they really let me hit, if you do it, then these 500 million will be lost, so it is more cost effective to overwhelm you. Anyway, what you are drawn today is the solo game. This game system can eliminate the difference between wealthy teams and ordinary teams to the greatest extent. The gap between them is all ace versus ace. In comparison, I am more optimistic about Miss Valentina's performance. As Yan said, among all the competition formats that can be drawn in the mecha competition, one-on-one solo competitions account for more than 70% of the total. This setting is mainly to take care of those who only have one. An ordinary level team with an ace pilot can still compete against rich and powerful teams. Otherwise, if the 3 ace pilots fight together, there will be almost no suspense about the outcome. In this way, the competition between those powerful teams and ordinary participating teams will not be interesting to watch. It may feel satisfying to watch the crushing battle situation once or twice, but if you watch it too much, the audience will still get tired of it. There are 2 hours of preparation time before the game. Chi Hanfan and Leighton are working hard to replace Valkyrie with new equipment. The long-range railgun and retractable physical shield have been replaced. The map of abandoned city is modeled on the cities that were destroyed by nuclear wars on the Earth in the old era. The entire site is filled with ruins of buildings more than 10 meters high. Coupled with the intricate urban underground pipeline system, there will only be explosions on this map. Close encounters or patient ambush battles, like the long-range shooting battles of the first game, simply don't happen here. At the same time, it is precisely because of the complexity of the abandoned city map that the collection and analysis of information has become one of the important factors that affect the outcome of the game. Kaylan and other off-site personnel cannot communicate with the next player. All judgments and decisions it has to be completed by Valentina herself, and it also has extremely high requirements for the pilot's own tactical literacy. Valkyrie's new weapon is a pair of small arm shields fixed on the outside of the arm armor with cutting chainsaws on the edges, plus 2 short-barreled rapid-fire shotguns. This equipment combination is completely designed for close combat. The design, especially the less than 1 meter long barrel of the shotgun, allows Valentina to turn the muzzle of the shotgun and fight back even if the opponent's beast-shaped mecha pounces on it. Remember, don't force yourself. If it doesn't work, give in before setting off. Chi Hanfan slapped the cockpit door heavily. Put your own safety first. I know. Valentina's calm voice came from inside the mecha, which seemed very dull. Then, she controlled the mecha to turn around and walk towards the entrance of the competition venue. The second group match of the Hunting God hunting group has officially begun. As soon as she entered the site, Valentina found a building that had collapsed with only 1/3 of it remaining as her hiding place. She squatted down in the right angle area formed by 2 ruined walls and moved the camouflaged cannon into the ground. The mouth was placed at the window on the second floor. Not only the muzzle, but also the body itself has been changed from the eye-catching black, white, and orange paint to the grey wasteland-style urban camouflage. Squatting into the ruins, it simply blends into the environment. Because there are no equipment restrictions, the participating aircraft basically carry anti-detection devices, such as thermal infrared detection devices, metal detection equipment, etc. The detection range is very limited. When facing a person who is 20 meters away and remains, the opponent who is stationary can basically only rely on the pilot's own eyes. We can see that Valentina changed her previous active attack style and chose ambush tactics. The commentator of this game is still Alex, but the difference from before is that the entire competition venue is under the soundproof cover. No matter how loud the commentary is, the players in the arena cannot hear it at all. If Wolfgang of the Flash Wolf Club also chooses to use static breaking, then this will be a competition that tests the patience of both parties. Choose a suitable location, lurk, and wait for the opponent to enter the ambush area. Although this tactic seems very cumbersome, in such an urban battlefield with complex terrain, once the battle begins, the side setting up the ambush will have extremely huge potential. Advantage: there was an upset in the 9th competition. On the same map of abandoned city, 3 ace pilots from a prestigious club accidentally entered the opponent's ambush circle and were attacked almost instantly. The opponent destroyed 1 aircraft, and in the ensuing battle, the 3 non-ace pilots fought and retreated. With the help of pre-laid traps and favorable terrain, they destroyed all 3 aircraft at the cost of losing only 1 aircraft. Ace. This is also the only time in the group stage that a powerful team was defeated by a team that made up the numbers. Although in the eyes of the outside world, this powerful team lost to its own arrogance, it also proved that in this kind of venue, the advantage of setting up an ambush is enough to smooth out the hard power between the ace and the non-ace. The gap. It is precisely because of this that the organizers of the competition have been prompted to design more such maps to enhance the unpredictability of the competition. Let's shift the camera to player Wolfgang. Wait. Player Wolfgang didn't choose to set up an ambush. He dug out a collapsed sewer entrance. He now entered the abandoned city, the underground part of the arena. And it's quickly approaching Valentina's position. Trouble. Chi Hanfan crossed his arms and frowned. This Wolfgang seems to be very familiar with this map, especially the underground part. If you look at his movement route, he almost chose it. The shortest path did not lead to any forks or dead ends. For other players, it was not easy to understand the structure of the upper half of the city, let alone the maze-like underground pipeline system. And he also guessed Valentina's hiding spot. The construction area composed of those buildings is almost the best ambush location in that block, Hound added. Impossible, although every competition will have the map of abandoned city, the details of each map are different. There is no chance for him to get familiar with the map, Yan said in shock. Maybe someone provided him with some help, Kaylan whispered, just like Mr. Ye, you told us the content of the knockout competition in advance.